Nigerian president has said he will not demand an apology from David Cameron over his comments about fantastically corrupt countries and will instead demand the return of assets to Nigeria. Mr. Buhari, whose anti-corruption efforts were recognized in the meeting with the Queen by the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, is understood to have been referring to the issue of Britain being used as a safe haven for criminals smuggling assets out of Nigeria. The president called for the establishment of international infrastructure to fight corruption and repatriate assets that are stolen and moved across borders. Mr. Cameron has been criticized by officials from Nigeria and Afghanistan after he was caught on camera telling Queen Elizabeth they were, quote, possibly the two most corrupt countries in the world. All right, let's discuss this further with Dan Whitehead, who's live for us in London. So Dan, Nigeria's president says he's more interested in the return of stolen assets held in British banks. Is the UK likely to heed his call?
Well, that's the big question. This gaffe, which we have seen emerge over the last 24 hours, is really dominating this summit, which kicks off in London tomorrow. In terms of those assets, I think President Buhari has really utilised this situation to his own benefit. He said he doesn't want an apology from David Cameron about what he said about Nigeria, that it was fantastically corrupt. Instead, return those assets. The Department for International Development here in the UK couldn't provide any firm numbers or details in terms of what assets, if any, have been returned to Nigeria already. We do know there have been a number of police investigations over recent years in terms of into allegations that money laundering has taken place and that there are assets within the UK, but the details indeed are scarce. Chatham House, one of the leading think tanks, did a study a couple of years ago saying that they believe the amount of money laundering and assets simply when it comes to Nigeria's crude oil industry runs into the billions of dollars, which are being safe havened in countries including the UK. So this is indeed a serious issue for Nigeria, and that'll be the #1 priority for the president when he makes a keynote speech at the summit on Thursday.
Well, and the president also did say that corruption does not differentiate between developed and developing countries. The UK, for instance, has allegedly been used as a safe haven by some corrupt African officials. So what is being done to clamp down on this practice?
Well, absolutely, and that all came out during the Panama Paper release a couple of months ago. David Cameron already announcing plans that tax havens and territories belonging to UK territories will have to do more to reveal who owns assets, who is the beneficial ownership of some of those funds, those trust funds and so forth. I think we're going to hear more detail on that during the summit tomorrow. And one of the major issues as well is property, UK property. Many African wealthy investors and countries have investments here in the UK. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry in London's high-end property market, and there are big questions being raised during this summit of just where does that money come from and how open is London's property market to corruption and money laundering itself.
Right, Dan Whitehead live for us there in London. Many thanks, Dan.